Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Rob's Movie Reviews. Real quick, before I get started, I'd just like to remind you all that if you like what you're seeing on this channel, please hit that like button and subscribe. Now, with that being said, let me get right into this week's review. I'm going to be reviewing a film that is a 2004 remake of a 1975 classic. I'm talking about the Stepford Wives. Now, the original, the 1975 film, was a little bit of a slow-moving movie, but a very good film. This film, however, in comparison, I am sorry to say, is not. It is just is not a good movie. It's a poor execution as far as a remake. I think the first mistake that was made was that they tried to, well, they didn't try, they switched genres. The original was more of a suspense thriller, where they went the comedy route with the remake, which is what they seem to be doing with a lot of the remakes these days. It works in some cases. In this particular movie, it did not work at all. It's a shame, too, because I went into viewing this film with a lot of high hopes. I thought it had a lot of potential. I remembered watching the original film. I remember how much I enjoyed it. Then I sat down and I watched this, and I was so disappointed. And in looking at the cast that they put together for this film, I mean, outstanding cast, you would think. You got Nicole Kidman, Glenn Close, Bette Midler, Christopher Walken, John Lovitz. I love John Lovitz, by the way. The weakest link in the cast would be Matthew Broderick. I am not a fan of Matthew Broderick. I have never been a fan. I find his work to be very droll, very dry, very boring. He has no enthusiasm, no personality whatsoever. And to pick him for one of the lead roles in this film, I think, was a major mistake. The Stepford Wives, if you're not familiar with it, is a movie about a couple, Joanne and her husband Walter, and their two children. They leave New York City, move out to the suburbs in a community named Stepford. They're not there very long at all before Joanne begins to notice that all the other women in Stepford are very robotic in their personality. They seem to only be concerned with one thing and one thing only, and that is pleasing their husbands, and that is cooking, cleaning. They're really kind of the stereotypical 1950s housewives. And outside of being that, there is really nothing else in their lives. That's what they live for, what they strive for. Doesn't make a lot of sense to Joanne. Another new arrival in Stepford by the name of Bobby, a friend that she befriends, notices the same thing. They notice how anybody new that comes into town within a matter of weeks, their personality transforms, and they become more and more robotic, just like the rest of the women in town. And toward the end of the movie, it kind of, in the original movie, like I said, it was a suspense thriller. It builds to the ending where you find out that all of the women in the town are being replaced by identical replicas, robots, because the men in the town are very chauvinistic. They don't want wives who can think for themselves. They don't want wives who have ambitions. All they want is wives who will tend to their every need and tell them how wonderful they are constantly. Now, in this remake, like I said, it's treated more as a comedy, and the source material just doesn't work as a comedy. I'm sorry, it doesn't come off. The cast, for the most part, there were some shining performances in this movie. For instance, John Lovitz. I absolutely adore John Lovitz. I always have. he put into just about any situation can find a way to come across and be very entertaining, and he doesn't disappoint in this film. Unfortunately, he also doesn't get a whole lot of on-camera time, which actually I think works to his advantage in this particular case. uh, Glenn Close, another one who, even though she's in a bad situation, working with bad material, this is a poorly written script. Let me point that out. Poorly written script. But even with those disadvantages, Glenn Close is still able to deliver a very entertaining performance, as well as Christopher Walken. Though, like John Lovitz, he has very limited screen time. In the case of Nicole Kidman and Bette Midler, they just almost come across as if they're just there for the paycheck. They just shuffle the way through this movie. There's no real enthusiasm on their part. No, it's just very, very mundane performances by both of them. Again, like I said, they put in a "I'm here to get paid" performance, and Matthew Broderick is Matthew Broderick. He's the same in everything he's ever done, and that is not good. And again, this movie's no exception. He puts forth a very lousy performance, in my opinion. I'm not a Matthew Broderick fan. Some of you may be. Some of you may disagree with my evaluation of Matthew Broderick, but that's just how I feel about the guy. It's another disappointment. I saw when I chose this movie to watch that it was directed by Frank Oz. That piqued my curiosity right away, because I'm a big Frank Oz fan. He's done a lot of great work over the years, a lot of voiceover work. He's directed actually quite a few movies. This was not one of his better efforts. Again, I don't really think that the blame can go on him so much as it can. He was just given a dud to work with, as is the case with the actors in this movie. Some of them managed to take a bad situation and find a way to pull something good out of it, but for the most part, this is just a very poorly executed movie, and I cannot, in any good conscience, recommend this film. I'm not saying don't watch it. I'm just saying that I wouldn't personally recommend this movie. I would say if you're interested in seeing the Stepford Wives, you should seek out and see the 1975 original, far superior to this 2004 remake. And that's pretty much all I'm going to have to say about the Stepford Wives. So be sure to check back next week when I'll be doing another review for you. And until then, you all take care.